A very, very good evening. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. And welcome back. We've missed a couple of shows, as the more eagle-eyed of you may recall. I've been away, escaped on a little 10-year wedding anniversary trip with my long-suffering wife. I can recommend the wine list on the Blue Train. I can highly recommend the wine list at Delagraph. And I can highly recommend being married to a little Greek lawyer called Dimitra. He's given me a decade of great joy, but I'm back and hard at work at Element House, and not in the cellar, not with Manny and the team, not our usual Element House production. Instead, I'm here because in about an hour and a half's time, I'll be stepping up on stage for the annual Element House Arts Angels auction, where we'll be selling some spectacular South African art, and doing so in aid of the Click Foundation, which does terrific work in the field of education amongst underprivileged South Africans, of which sadly there are far too many. But next year, over 250,000 kids in South Africa will be assisted by the Click Foundation, and particularly in the areas of science, maths, and technology. It's a terrific platform, one I'm very excited to be part of and supporting, and that shall be my evening, and that in turn is why I'm here at Element House. Now, I don't have anybody with me in person. I do, though, virtually have four very cool guests, and they are going to be chatting to me about the brand new Platter's Guide and how they feature in it one way or another. But to that in a moment. Before that happens, let me throw forward to next Thursday. Now, if you happen to be in Johannesburg or Pretoria or surrounds, then fantastic. But even if not, you can still be part of the very first Dan Really Likes Wine Christmas auction. It's taking place at Strauss in their gallery next Thursday, kicking off at 6 o'clock, and the auction will be going from about 7:30, and we've got some wonderful support. Erica Obermeyer's given us a barrel of wine and the bottles which we'll be selling off. Peter Ferreira's given us 50 bottles of different Cup Classiques from the Cup Classique Association to celebrate half a century of making Method Champenoise here in South Africa. We've got a night out with Michael Fridge on. We've got a Burgundy selection from Great Domains, Boschendal experience, some lovely Rust and Freda lots, amongst about 25 in total. There's a Richard Scott art piece. There's a trip down to Bartney for 6 people for 3 nights. It's a really wonderful selection. But the best part of this is that all of the proceeds, every cent, will go to the Reach for a Dream Foundation. I spent some time with them last night at their annual golf fundraiser, where we put some good money towards helping children with life-threatening diseases and illnesses and their families. And we do the same through the medium of wine next Thursday. If you'd like to come and join us, 350 Rand gets you a ticket. There'll be wine poured all night, loads of canapes, and then the auction itself. But even if you can't make it, then do join us online via the Strauss platform. You're still able to bid, and you could sort out your Christmas gift list rather nicely and support a fabulous charity at the very same time. So that's next Thursday. I shall hope to see you then as we move towards the end of what has been a remarkably strange year. But it's a year that's had a few benchmarks of normalcy, a few symbols that may remind us that things might just be all right. And in the wine world, there is no more steadying sight than the release of the new Platter Guide. It is a monumental work. It is an all-encompassing piece that brings together every single wine in the country, every producer, just everything wine-wise in South Africa. And to do it is a Herculean task. So my guests today, 2 of the people involved in putting this together, including the editor, a man I do not envy, but I admire greatly, and one of his tasters. He's a regular on the show, and I'm very glad to see you back. And then we have 2 of the 3 big winners on the night. So my guests on Dan Really Likes Wine this evening, live from Element House, are the tireless Philip van Zyl, who oversees this gargantuan project, Angela Lloyd, who tastes wine in vast amounts and does so brilliantly, Frans Smit out at Spier, who's a member of the Cape Winemakers Guild and a winemaking icon, and then somebody you might not know terribly well now, but believe me, rush out, buy her wine now. It's only going to increase in value. Jolette Steyn from the Vineyard Party. Guys, welcome. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining me.
You too, Dan. Great to
be here. Thanks, Dan. Nice to be here.
Let's kick off with you, Philip, because I'm interested to see what your feeling is at the moment. Are you a man who is full of pride and delight and excitement? The new edition is out. or are you just relieved beyond words that you've finally got another one done?
Yeah, that's a very good question. A bit of both. I think a bit of both. It's been a challenge because of the pandemic. We lost a good deal of time, tasting time, because of the tasting samples not being allowed to be moved around. So that was a challenge. But I have to say that our team is absolutely incredible, and they pulled together, made up the time, and we were able to produce the book in pretty much the window over the time we committed to.
Talk us through very briefly, in as much as it's possible for a project of this scale, how it actually works. How do you gather the wines? Who's involved? How do you put together something that is so all-encompassing on the South African wine spectrum?
We, in April timeframe, we send out an invitation to all of the producers in our database, and we invite them to send us their latest vintages for tasting, and also to update the phone numbers, the mechanical bits and pieces that are in the guide, and so the wines get delivered to a central reception area, a warehouse, where they get checked. So our intention is to taste successive vintages. So if we tasted Cabernet Sauvignon 2018 last time, we'll want to taste the 2019 vintage this time around. So our team, our logistics team, receive the wines, they check them to make sure that they're all present and accounted for, and then the wines get sent out to our tasters who taste the wines at their home. They then, once they've tasted the wines, they log their ratings and tasting notes on an intranet, and then I set up on the copy, edit that, and then we put it all together and have it printed. So it sounds relatively straightforward, but it is a pretty complex thing.
Well, you do make it sound like a remarkably simple operation, which of course it is not. The transition space from individual tasters to creating a piece that has a uniformity to it in understanding how one wine compares to another, even though two completely different people have tried them, especially at the top end when you're dishing out these sought after 5 stars. How does that work? How do you make sure that Angela's tasting and Greg's tasting and Mailu's tasting and Tim's tasting all sit at the same level, and that you're dishing out the 3, 4, 5 stars in a way that's matching?
I think from experience, really, and from tasting together, you definitely get a feel for the tasters' approach to tasting, how they taste, how they score, and I think it's pretty much a team thing. It's very interesting because our tasters, as you say, they do taste individually, but I think the unique part of Platter is that it has running in the background probably what you want to call a track record system, whereby the individual taster tastes the wine, the current vintage, and then when it comes down to making their tasting notes, they do need to refer to last year's rating and the tasting notes, and kind of match up and say, is the wine on a par? Is it better, or is it perhaps not as good as last year? But so there's this referral to the track record of the wine that's happening in the background all the time. So that kind of has certainly has a bearing on the level of tasting across the whole team.
Let's turn over to your senior taster in the sense of most experienced, and I think held in the highest esteem of what is a great panel as a whole. Angela, tasting for Platter, just very simply from the experience of it, the honor of being part of this iconic South African space. How much fun is it? How challenging is it to have this particular role?
It's definitely fun. And some days you really battle with wine. So it's fun and it's not fun. But in the end, it's just a huge privilege. especially with some of the wines I'm lucky enough to taste. And I think one of the things that Phil's very good at is making sure that we all taste across a range of top wines right through to really just nice everyday drinking wines, because you know, you can't calibrate if you just taste the top end all the time.
And you have so many wines to run through. So just what is the art, if there is an art, to remembering what they all are, to differentiating, trying 100 different wines in the same day, managing to know that your 87th wine of the day is still getting the same precise treatment, the same precise understanding as your very first one of the day?
I think one of the privileges of tasting at home is that you don't have to make your mind up in one day. I mean, often I'll taste wines over 2 or 3 days and only then confirm how exactly I want to rate that wine and what I think of it. Because all the best wines don't necessarily reveal everything they have to reveal within 24 hours. So, you know, maybe 48 hours on, I've shifted. It doesn't happen very often, but it's nice to be able to have that confirmation.
You mentioned that you taste some of the particularly special ones. Part of our conversation this evening is about the Sadie Family Wines. Both Ibn and Paulie's winemakers send their apologies. They have a big event on in the Swartland at the moment, and I'm going to chat to you about those a little later. But just from a more broader perspective, Angela, from what you've tasted across this period, going into this new edition of the guide, is there a broad sense from you of where we are this year as South African wine as opposed to where we might have been a year before?
I think the drought had played a big role, 17, 18, and we're now seeing wines from 19 and 20 when we've had decent rain. And I think the vines have responded accordingly, as well, of course, as the winemakers themselves, you know, always every year edging towards something closer to what they want to make. So I mean, this year there were some really thrilling wines, but there are thrilling wines every year. It's fantastic to see how brilliant they are.
Now, this is the point where we extend some sympathy to poor Angela, who's had to try all of the Sadie wines yet again, the poor thing, and has struggled through bravely. We're going to find out just why all 10 got 5 stars shortly. But let's head back to Philip and just set the scene for the first of our 2 producing guests who are with us. The young winemaker, the newcomer of the year, is with us, Jolette Steyn. I see Bubs Highland is watching at the moment. Hello, Mildred. Year Jolette Steyn, says Bubbles. He's always a great supporter of the show and clearly a great supporter of Jolette as well. Newcomer of the year, Philip, what does that mean? How do you decide it? What determines why this particular award goes to this particular person?
It's pretty straightforward, really. It's the newcomer who, in other words, the winery who debuts in the new edition with the highest number of 5-star wines, or then the highest, if there are no 5 stars, then the highest score. It's as simple as that.
All right, well, that simple formula led us to the Vineyard Party that is Jolette Steyn. Jolette, welcome to the show for the very first time, although I suspect the first of many, because your star is much in the ascent. How cool was it to get this particular news? How much of a surprise was it?
Hi, Dan. Thanks so much for having me. It was, it's insane. I mean, it was a big surprise. I didn't know, because it was my first year entering Platters. I thought all the 5 stars go to the event on the Friday. So it was completely crazy. I was shocked, and I didn't play it cool, sadly, at all. I was just really happy and yeah, just completely flabbergasted and super, super happy.
It's interesting you use Flabbergast, because it was the Flabbergast Cinsault that formed part of the Erica Obermeyer stable that shot her into the Newcomer of the Year a little while back, and her journey since has been terrific. Her journey up to that point was also particularly exciting. What's your journey been up to this point, Jolette? How did you get into wine, and how did the Vineyard Party, which is such a cool name, come about?
Thanks. It's pretty standard, I think. After school, I took a gap year because I was too young for my year. I wanted to study art or marketing, and then overseas, a friend said they're studying winemaking, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. I love art, I love languages, I love travel, and I love not having to be in an office all the time. And then I thought, well, winemaking sounds like a good deal. And then I went to go study it at Stellenbosch. My parents were strangely supportive of that. And then my first harvest and my final year was just, everything just came together and I loved it. And then, I studied some more in France. I did my master's and my thesis in Priorat in Catalonia. And then I did what most winemakers do. I did a lot of stints all across the world to learn from great winemakers and see different regions. And then I've always wanted to make my own wine. I guess most winemakers do. And then after about 10 years of making wine for other people, the Vineyard Party was born. So.
And tell us how the Vineyard Party works. I mean, it sounds like you spend all your time dancing under the stars and drinking wine out of the bottles, which would be fantastic. But I suspect there's a little more to it. How's the operation? How do you work? Where do you work from?
Well, it's quite a small operation at the moment. Obviously, the dream is to scale up massively, a little bit from next year. So basically, I sell a space. The Vineyard Party has no own vineyards or a cellar yet, a building. I call it an Airbnb or Uber model. Hopefully one day we can have that. So basically, search for vineyards. The idea was with the Vineyard Party is really to celebrate diversity in the vineyards, in the soils, and then with the people as well. You know, often you drive past vineyards and it just looks really sad. The soil looks really dead. And that's really important to me, to find those kind of vineyards. That said, Semillon is not so easy to find always. It used to be super widely planted. Now it's less so. So yeah, it's really just a journey of ongoing discovery. And then hopefully in a few years' time, we'll find a permanent home.
The Erica story is one I refer to frequently. In fact, she's just moved into her brand new cellar. And I don't think that getting the Newcomer Award defined who she was or what she did, but it certainly gave her a very welcome nudge in the right direction. Platter is our Bible in South Africa when it comes to wine. What does this mean to you, both as Jolette, the winemaker, but also as the brand and taking that brand forward?
This is huge. I mean, this is my maiden vintage, the 2018 with the 2 wines. So I couldn't have thought that it would happen, and it did. So for me, it's massive. I think for the brand, it's just really great because, you know, they were only a few thousand bottles, and there's been really great support. And I think that's what's really nice of our industry. You know, it's big, but it's also quite small, and everybody's just really happy for each other and, you know, supportive, like from like other winemakers to retailers, small wine bars, restaurants. It's just, yeah, it's really a lot of goodwill, which is nice in these strange times. So I think it's definitely a great platform, and to be recognized by Platters, which, like you said, is still the Bible of wine in South Africa, is just amazing and a great privilege.
Angela, if I can jump back to you quickly before we introduce our other guest, there's probably a glass of wine that needs to be bought for you by Jolette. You didn't just introduce me to her wine by sending up some very, very nice Semillon, but you had a bit of a hand in the success platter-wise of the Vineyard Party.
Yes, Dan. How it works with newcomers, Philip asked 2 people to taste the wine, just to make sure that there is consensus. And he kindly handed the Vineyard Party, Jolette's 2 Semillons, to myself and Cathy van Zyl, his wife. And we tasted them, either Cathy at home and me at home, and we exchanged notes and just reached agreement on a score, which was, I said, Hibby Dragons really must go up for 5 stars. I think it's fantastic. Again, that was a wine I tasted over several days because it, you know, Semillon takes time just to open up. So it was really super to learn that she did get 5 stars.
And it's a winemaker, a wine brand that is a story only very just beginning. Let's find out about our other wine producing guest and the award therein. Philip, the African Wine Award. Tell us a little bit more about what that is, what it means, and why Frans Smit is the recipient.
So the editor's award is is an award which I get to the pleasure and privilege of making every year, and the idea is to identify and to highlight and to celebrate an individual, if it's an individual producer or a team who are the ambassadors for South African wine par excellence. So it's someone who a team, an individual who really excel, not just in the current edition of Platters, but historically on track record. So it's a performance over time, and this for the choice of Frans and his team really was sparked by the fact that the wines that they produce are produced in quite a large volume, but it's all done with precision and a lot of care, lots of meticulous attention to detail, and so they get fantastic ratings at the top end. There's a 5 stars plural, 5 of them this year, and also a category winner for the Bordeaux style wine. And all the way down to all the way across the portfolio to the easy drinkers, if I can put it that way. So it's a spectrum of quality, and I really wanted to celebrate that. So that was my reason for nominating Frans and his team.
Frans, I remember that the last time we had some wine, we were sitting together with Craig Tibbett in Johannesburg, tasting a whole range, and amongst the conversation, very quietly, because like all winemakers, you're a humble sod, the awards and the accolades and the stuff you'd done over your career filtered through, and it's been a wonderful career and a long and storied one for you. But to get this, to have the editor of Platter saying, you get my personal pat on the back for being something special, that's got to be up there with all of the accolades you've received in your long and distinguished career.
Yeah, yes, Dan, it's when I received Philip's email or the invite to the function, when it's actually this year, because of time frames, it was quite short notice, and we were all wondering what's going to happen in a sense of the amount of 5 stars. But yeah, I think to receive the award like this, and as Philip described the award, it's something that we at Spier and as a team really strive to deliver on value to the consumer at every price bracket. It's $70, at $800, at $300. That's our passion, our dream, to make the consumer tasting a wine that they say, wow, I really get value for what I buy. And so it's a first time for us, and we had a board meeting today, and I said to the shareholders, it's actually probably one of the most prestigious things we can receive as a brand, So we are extremely honored to receive something like that.
It's the holy grail of the larger wine spaces in South Africa, to be able to produce volume at both ends of the spectrum. And it's something you seem to have managed. There's the easier drinking, slightly more price accessible wine, but you've also got stuff at the top end. And we'll talk about that red blend of yours in a moment, which sits in that broader space. Is there a secret to what you've been able to do in getting the market to embrace large volumes of Spier, both at the entry level and at the top end?
Well, I don't see one to be a big winery. Sometimes people think it needs to be average. For me, when it's a larger winery like us, and it's not a big winery, but We focus on every single bunch of grape that come in that fits a specific brand. So we farm our vineyards to a specific brand. If it's a 21 Gables or Frans K Smit wine, the grapes get detailed in the vineyard, hand-picked, hand-sorted, destemmed, berry sorted. So the attention to detail on every single level is important, and we plan that meticulous upfront before we punch or crush every ton. We know exactly if this vineyard goes in what brand, and we farm it accordingly. So we work very much from the vineyard to the brand, and in that way we can build consistency. We can build style. Many of these top wines, or all of them, are from the same vineyard for the last 8 to 10 years. So we build consistency through terroir. We build consistency through the same winemaking team. My team is with me for a long time. So we are very much custodians of the vineyard, and convert it into a bottle of wine.
You've done that with more than just a bottle of wine. You've done it with many, but the one that got a particular nod from the judges was your Cape Winemakers Guild Bordeaux blend. What for you makes that wine so special?
Dan, I think let me say outright, I think the Helderberg, where this grape come from, is probably the most or the finest terroir for Bordeaux varietals, in particular Cabernet Merlot and Cabernet Franc. And this wine is my Frans K Smit wine also come from the same terroir. And when we make the guild wine, it's a smaller selection, and it's literally 3 barrels of wine, which are blended, and out of that is 500 bottles. So it's a blend from the Helderberg terroir. We have a property of 50 hectares up in the Helderberg, sort of just to the right of the old Cordoba, or now the Taibos, closer to the sea. That's our vineyard, which we established in 2003. I'm in the process, actually was there this morning, to start replanting the farm again, renewing vineyards. So the Cabernet, the Merlot, and the Cabernet Franc is all within sort of 100 meters from each other. The block 150 meters at about 200 meters above sea level, 8 kilometers from the sea, overlooking False Bay and the Stellimus Valley. So it's a fantastic terroir. We craft the wine separately, and then we do a blend at sort of 15 months, depending on the year, and then leave it another good 6-8 months in barrel to marry it. So that's always been the style for this wine. So the wine spent 24 months plus in barrel, and in many cases probably longer than many other wines in this category. But that's the style I like. We make the wines not big, but we make the wines with good tannin structure, with good middle palate, and we still try to produce a wine which is lively and fruit forward with red fruit energy. Then when you taste the wine, sometimes these wines, when they are so long oak, they can be overpowered, but we really manage to, or try to manage to get the balance there. So it's a brilliant award for us. The fact that it's my selection of guild, my guild wine is actually recognition that we actually didn't taste too bad when we put the wine together.
Understatement, as always. I was chatting to Andrea Molyneux yesterday. She's very excited about this award on your behalf, and I know the rest of the guild will be as well. The Editors Award going the way of Frans Smit and his team at Spier. The Winery of the Year went to someone who really struggled yet again. 10 wines entered, 10 5-stars in Platter. It is, of course, Sadie Family Wines. And as I mentioned earlier, both Eben and Paul, his head winemaker, have got a function in the Swaziland today, and sadly weren't able to join us on the show. But Angela is with us. She does taste all of those wines. Angela, I know we all know that Eben is something special, and that the wine he produces every year will be sought after and will sell out in minutes, and is just such a terrific reflection of South Africa. And yet still, it's hard not to get the sense that even Eben is somehow each year managing to get just that little bit better.
Indeed, Dan, I think one needs to go back and look at where it all starts. Now, I've been tasting Eben's wine since he first made wine back in '98 and followed him through. And this year for Platter was my 3rd year, unfortunately my last, as Philip does a 3-year rotation with the tasters. So I have monitored what he does. And behind the scenes, there is one term I would use for Eben and the team, and that is meticulous. I mean, for instance, when I receive the wines, all the wines are there, they're neatly packed. The tasting notes are like stories. He writes brilliant tasting notes on the vintage every year, which goes out in PDF form. They're really useful because it's not just the tasting of the wine, but how the year has affected the vines and so on. But it's really the vines where Eben pours all his money. I mean, when I wrote to him to congratulate him after the awards last week, he said, "You won't believe the millions we pour into the vineyards." Now, you've got to bear in mind that a lot of these vines are heritage vines, well over 35 years old. And being oldies, they need lots of tender loving care. And he makes sure that they receive it. And I think the drought was a real drainer on some of them. I mean, for instance, the Footpad, that lovely blend up from up the West Coast, there was none made in 2019, I think it was, or was it 20? I can't remember now. Because there just wasn't enough fruit. And to save the vines, they had to drop the fruit. Now, think of doing that. You could have made a bit of money out of it, but he much preferred to save the vines, and look at the glorious result that we've had this year in the 20.
When you receive these wines, Angela, you know exactly whose they are, you know where they come from, you've made it very clear the detail that goes into it. How do you set aside the natural human emotion coupled with your understanding, consciously and subconsciously, I'm about to drink some awesome wine because it is Eben, and still stay as objective as you can and make sure that even Eben Sadie is subjected to proper scrutiny?
Oh, I think it's years of practice, Dan. I've been doing this for 36 years now anyway, and it's something you just have to divorce yourself from. If a wine speaks to you, then you've just got to rate it accordingly. I mean, Columella, which I had this year and I've had for the past 2 years, I perhaps wasn't quite so mad about the 18 last year. But, you know, obviously it was up for 5 stars, which it didn't get. But as soon as I had that wine this year, it just blew me away. And I think the thing was with each of them, you know, you have producers who have house styles, which is fair enough. That's the way they like to make wine and so on. I mean, they'll treat every variety as a variety or a blend as a blend. But with Eben, there are 10 totally different wines. I mean, each of those Vineyards wines are from different vineyards and they reflect where they come from. They are total individuals. So if you can see through what the tasting gives you and can picture what they were like last year or the year before, there is a remarkable consistency in them. I mean, I had no hesitation of putting each of those wines up at 95 plus. Now, Columella and Mrs. Kirsten both got 98, which is the highest score that I think any wine has ever got on this. I mean, I apologize to Tim Atkin that I didn't go for 100 on the Columella, but I think the fact that it's gone to be one of the top rated wines speaks for itself. So yes, it is difficult, but you're working against trying to be too subjective. You're trying to be objective, and I don't know, something I do manage to do, even though I've got the labels in front of me. At least I hope I do.
I don't think too many would argue with you, Angela. You've got a long and distinguished history of judging wine, just as Platter has got a long and distinguished history. And I'm looking at some of the comments coming through. Ina Smith, please say hi to Philip. I also worked for the Platter Wine Guide and know what huge effort, very, very long hours and patience is needed. He is very special. Andrew Walgar is a good friend and supporter of the show over in North Carolina. Hey, Dan, we're enjoying Thanksgiving here in North Carolina today. I refer to Platters regularly to help with selling our South African wines under our Elephant's Corner Wines name. Our fan base is growing along with a thirst for knowledge. Platters is my go-to on a daily basis. Cheers to all. So proud to be working with our friends, the likes of Venna Grobler at Declan Vane, Mont Rochelle, Johnny at Camberley, Johan at Normandy, and 2 new farms announced soon. Great to see Americans taking to South African wine so well. Alexander Eichel, was a privilege working for Platter with you and Christina at the Vineyard Connection back in the day. Such great experience. Daryl Balfour, good evening all. Congratulations to the award winners and to the Platter team, especially those who have the ordeal of tasting and reviewing so many special wines. Someone has to do it. I think, Daryl, collectively, though, the entire Platter tasting team has in a year what you get through in a month based on your cellar. And Reginald Peckmire up at Cheetah Plains, the work of art as it's only done by John Platter in South Africa. We are who we are because the fine endorsement made live long. The edition is way bigger than the word exuberant. Loving it. Reggie, thank you. You do have a wonderful way with words, which takes me back then, Mr. van Zyl, to the space that is Platters. How much pressure do you and your team feel each year, knowing that there are so many people who continue, and rightly so, I think, to use you as the benchmark for South African wine, and then to get it to a space where we're celebrating wine, but we're also, much as we love South African wine, still holding it to account and making sure that if you're going to get 5 stars, you've got to work hard to make sure you deserve them?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Dan. I think that it truly is a privilege, and I say that sincerely, and I mean it. That we are entrusted, if you like, by most of the industry to judge the wines, and I think what we definitely do try to do is primarily to understand the wine and to understand what the intention is, to understand as much as we can about the terroir, about the vintage situations, trying to get as much information as possible, which is why we have this tasting as a free. The 5-star tasting is a blind tasting, but the initial tasting is the intention is to understand what the winemaker's intention is in part, and then obviously you then become as a taster, you need to then step back and apply all of those objective criteria and standards that you would do as a judge in any other situation. So you're looking at the structure. Does it have a good structure? Does it have longevity? Does it have balance? Does it have a certain X factor? If you're going to go up into the 95 plus or the 5-star league, does it, as Angela says, does it speak to you? Does it say something about itself, about the winemaker, but mostly about the terroir, about the site? So that's our focus, and we really be humble in the sense that we approach and taste every wine, no matter what the price, no matter what the origin, as something special and something worthy, and because we all know on the right occasion can taste like a million rand. So that's our approach, and hopefully we convey some of the enthusiasm that goes into it. It is, as Angela was saying, it is hard work. It's tough. It's in the middle of winter, for example, and of course this past winter was pretty tough for many reasons. But our team really, I feel that they do have this innate enthusiasm and passion for the and it shines through, and I really feed off that. My job is quite trying as well. But we as a team, I really do think that we want to convey the dynamism and the individuality and the specialness of South African wine, and I really hope we do that.
I think you do it extraordinarily well, and to create this resource on an annual basis is just such a gift to those of us who enjoy wine, and it's another reason to make sure that you're rushing out to get hold of a copy, and we'll find out how to do that in a moment. Let's go back to our two producers and start with Jolette. Right, you've won this. You're now the newcomer of the year. You can change your business card and pop stuff up all over social media and open lots of bottles in celebration, but you've then got to get back to the business of making wine and continuing this wine story of yours. What is the horizon for you, Jolette? Where do you see yourself over the next few years?
Dan, well, for now, I'm sourcing new vineyards. So that's keeping me nice and busy, trying to get some Semillon. We're scaling the production from 2022, just a tiny bit, because everybody needs more Semillon and skin contact in their life. And then maybe another wine will join the party in 2022. So people will taste that in about 3 years' time. So for the moment, yeah, that's the focus, to just get really cool vineyards.
So I'm just quickly writing down the notes there in my diary so I know when to go and buy the new wine. Brilliant. And what about being part of not just the South African wine environment, but part of this new edition of Platter, sitting in great company? Somebody like Frans, for example, member of the Cape Winemakers Guild, inspired many winemakers. What do you draw from people like Frans, from this great generation who've gone before you, in terms of your inspiration and pushing you as a winemaker?
I think the beauty of it, and that's what we saw at the event on Friday as well, to be on a stage, or metaphorical stage, with these great producers is just an amazing thing, because I feel that by now you see these people like Frans, like the others, they do what they do, and they really focus on it, and they do it well, and they're so passionate about their one thing. And I think that's the beauty of it. Sadie has their focus and their way of doing it. So you see all these personalities, and I generally think winemakers are introverted people, but then you kind of quietly see their personalities come through in their wines. And it's just, I think it's an art for people to do it for as long as they have, and consistently. That's just that thing you aspire to.
I think there are some introverted winemakers, but I've met one or two others who might contrast that particular view. Some terrific wine that you're bringing out, and I love to see the fact that you're inspired by the slightly older generation. Frans, what about you? What does it make you feel about the future of our wine industry, the hands that the industry is in its next generation, when you see people like Jolene coming through and making such exciting, such really cool wine?
Dan, I have to say and confess that in the last couple of years, I'm super thrilled about the amazing sensors that come through the industry. When I was a young winemaker from Elsenburg, Cinso was a dry red wine or base wine for brandy. Today, some of the most exciting wines is Cinso and Cinso-based wines. But the one thing that struck me about the generation after us is that so many of them have the guts to be entrepreneurial and stand up and do their own thing, which is fantastic for Brand South Africa. It's fantastic for them. It puts South Africa within 10 years in a different space as a country that produce innovative styles of wines. And I can't thank them enough for that sort of direction they've taken. So I have them the biggest hope for them and admiration for them to go this direction. So I support them where I can. I drink quite a lot of those wines. It's not cheap, which for a guy that needs to look at his retirement, I need to look careful. But anyway, it's fantastic. But quite serious. I think our industry is in a brilliant space. To have 234 5-star wines, I think is a number, and every single one of them is being scrutinized, double scrutinized. It's a platform where people can come. I always see them when they come off the airplane before COVID, and now they're sort of back. They come with their platters under their arm, and they only want to taste the red wines in the book. It's like a Bible to them. So it's for us. It's for Spier, which is a bigger brand. It's brilliant to have. Actually, the 5 stars is phenomenal, but the 4.5 stars and the 4 stars, to have such a broad accolade across our wines is brilliant. So we look forward to utilize the awards to benefit our business and to grow the image of our brand. But yeah.
I think by extension, we can tell that it's not just people like France who are encouraging young winemakers like Jolette, but I think the young winemakers like Jolette putting a little bit of pressure on some of the older guard to make sure that they don't rest on their laurels. And that's exactly what we're seeing, which is why France has got the award that he has. Angela, before we wrap up with Philip, just a final review of the wine you've drunk, the space we're in. France talks about being as excited as he's ever been about South African wine. It does seem that there is a real sense of adventure, I think, to South African wine, where winemakers are trying not just new varietals, but new approaches to old varietals and having a lot of fun with what they're doing. Is that what has been reflected in your assault on the Platter guide for this particular edition?
Oh, yes, I think it is, Dan. I mean, no, today we've got a Colombar that's a 5-star wine. Now, Colombar is widely planted. It's the second most planted grape after Chenin. And it was Ian Nordeer's wine that got 5 stars. I'm lucky enough to have tried it. And it is an amazing wine. It's very young, excuse me, and it will need time. But, you know, people, that the sense of adventure allows the guys to go and take a new look at varieties and say, what have we been missing? And find something that is totally different from a grape that was turned into distilling wine, and make something like a beautiful silk purse out of this grape, which was a bit of a sow's ear. So I was very thrilled with what I tasted. Excuse me. Because there's excitement around every corner, you know, different wines, different ways of making them. And if you enjoy tasting, if you enjoy wine, every wine has a different taste. And that's what one is looking for. It's got to say something different from the one next to it. And really, we are doing so well at doing that. And the wonderful winemakers, I mean, you talked about the young people like Jolette and so on, and there are more every year, but even sort of moving up the ladder a decade or so, there's new life in the slightly older winemakers too. They're joining in the fun of experimenting.
And that is really what makes South African wine. It's in such a cool and fun place at the moment, and what makes the job of our tasters all the more rewarding. Philip, to wrap up, there's one very important question I need to ask you, but I'll leave that for a moment. What I do want to find out from you is just the practicalities. People want to get their hands on this. There is a digital option. There is also the physical option. How do they get either of those two? When will they be available?
So the digital versions, the app and the website are already live. You can go to wineonaplatter.com/products and get a digital subscription. Download the app and enter your credentials, and off you go. And the hardcover book is printed. It's ready to roll out of the printworks. So it should be in retail middle of next week, starting from middle of next week.
We've seen the image of it there, which leads to my final question. It's always, I think there's actually large money put in this, the bookies each year. What color will Platter be this year? Who chooses the color and why?
Well, maybe I should just say that this edition is basically a gift to Platters from at Diners Club, who the parent company, and they put their heads together and came up with, I think, a stunning classic design. So we're calling it classic elegance, because I think that kind of reflects what the color scheme and the look and feel of the cover is. So but next time, let's keep it a secret.
A little bit of cloak and dagger to wrap things up. Philip, congratulations. You and your team have again given us just a fantastic tome and a great encyclopedia of another year of wine in South Africa. I know it's a huge effort. So congratulations to you and to Angela and to the rest of our tasters. And congratulations to all of our winners. Jolette, it's such an exciting time for you, but it's very much the start. And to France, I think you're a long way from hanging up the winemaking boots just yet. And I know there are going to be a lot of terrific Spier wines coming from you in your stable as well. So thank you to all of you. Congratulations, France. Well done, Jolette. Well done on all the hard work. I got told very strictly before the show by Angela that I'm not allowed to mention the fact that she never uses a spittoon and finishes every single bottle. So I won't mention that. But I will thank you for being on the show again. And Philip, I'll be off as soon as it hits the shelves to get my copy and add to my growing collection. But well done. You're an institution in South Africa, and we're very grateful for everything you do. So Philip, Angela, Jolette, France, thanks all very much for being part of a really special edition of the show this evening.
Thank you, Dan. It was great.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Philip. Cheers, guys.
So there we go. Philip van Zyl, the man behind Platter, Angela Lloyd, leading an all-star team of tasters. It's basically the Real Madrid Galacticos of the 2000s as tasters. What a team they are. And then a couple of our big winners, Jolette Steyn, Newcomer of the Year with the Vineyard Party. Go and find it. And Frans K Smit of Spier fame. And fame really is the right word. So look out, the new edition will be hitting shelves soon. The digital one already available to go and download at a very modest fee given the resource that you get. Enjoy it, revel in it, and make it a part of your daily wine experience. That wraps it up for today. I'm off to go and sell some art at the Art Angels auction. Please, if you can, if you're in Johannesburg, join us next Thursday evening. That will be out at Houghton Estate at the Strauss Auctioneers for the Dan Really Likes Wine Christmas auction in support of Reach for a Dream. Some wonderful wine lots, great wine on the evening, and the chance to support a terrific cause while drinking some fine wine and eating some good food. On Monday, amongst others, I will be catching up with Charles Hopkins at De Grendel and finding out how on earth a winery in Durbanville is making Pinot Noir. That does it for this evening. Thanks for your support. Well done once again to the team at Platters. You really are wine heroes in South Africa. This has been Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay, live from Element House. See you back again on Monday. Goodbye. To join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.